Happy Sunday. I hope everybody's had an amazing week. This week, we are going to dive into the big picture of lipedema and what else is involved. Is it like just lipedema, or is there something else going on behind the scenes? And we're going to continue with the slideshows, and I am in the comments, which is why it was set as a premiere, as you will find me, if you're watching this as it goes live, that you will find me in the comments. So if you have any questions or if you want to share something of your own experience with me, I would love that. And I am probably typing something in the comments right now so that you can see that I'm there. All right, so as always, I love a good slideshow. I am going to share my screen. Okay. So, all right, is it lipedema or is there more? There's always more. And there's a very good reason that I decided to do this one. And it's just basically a roundup of all the things I'm just like, oh, I had no idea it was bigger than this. I just kind of had this concept that it was just lipedema or just thyroid disease or just MCAS or just, it's not. It's kind of like this big thing that's under an umbrella item. So let's get into it. All right. If you're new around here, you can pause this and you can read all about me. But the main thing you need to know is that this was me only 3 years ago. So never think it's too late for you. I'm 55. Okay, so I turned 55 last birthday in February, and it's possible to change, right? You've just got to follow your nose and keep going. All right. My disclaimer, yes, I'm a naturopath and a clinical nutritionist. However, everything I share with you is stuff I've learned for myself and is pinned against my own symptomology. It's pinned against things that I know about myself, and that's how I unravel it and pull it all apart for me. I share it with you so that in case there's something you've missed or you don't understand, that perhaps you can take from that and take it to your doctor or your practitioner or whoever knows your full medical history and all your, bits and bobs about you. Okay. So that's my, pull up your big girl panties and do the right thing. Okay. Okay. So what's the bigger picture when it comes to lipedema? And we love segmenting things. I love segmenting things. We've got a very small condo here, and there's a lot of areas that you'll find in this place and in the houses I've always lived in, where I put things into boxes, right? So that everything's got its own little box and spot. And we do the same thing with diseases and, traumas and emotions and memories. We put them all into boxes because I guess as humans, it makes us feel safe that it has a label, it has a name. We know what, belongs with that. And it gets too much when we try to combine all these boxes into one. It gets too messy and we can't think clearly enough to sort of pull it all apart, right? Unfortunately, I'm learning that many of the boxes I have got going on when it comes to my health status all belong in the same drawer. So this is where we're at and why we're looking at the bigger picture. Okay, so what if lipedema is just part of a bigger picture and combines many syndromes? Because it does. And it's all connected by inflammation. That's where I've gotten to. Just suddenly, you'll see I just all of a sudden talking more and more about inflammation, even though I will talk about why. So all these other little bits and bobs. It's inflammation. That's what it comes down to. We've got inflammatory diseases and we've got inflammatory syndromes. So it's all about the inflammation and how can we reduce it and stop it from rising up and causing the pain and the, misfortunes attached to all these syndromes. Okay, so, this is lipedema, MCAS, hormones, all inflammatory, right? Connective tissue that is not working very well, all inflammatory. So let's look at the signs, because I love, and see, this is me also compartmentalizing things, right? Each slide is a different compartment. It makes me feel good. Okay, number one, hypermobility. So, double jointed party tricks when you're a kid, curling up with T-Rex arms when you're sleeping, leaning against countertops, leaning on one hip when you stand, right? Easily twisting your ankles, spraining joints, that kind of thing. Is this you? Do you have hypermobility? I've done a video on this. I'm not sure when it dropped in comparison to this video, but all of these sorts of strange things, bumping into things. We've got a disjointed proprioception of what's around us and how far away it is. And all of these things that are leaning on the countertops, the standing on one hip, it makes us feel stable and grounded. That's why we do it. But all of this is made worse by inflammation, right? So we feel even not in our body. I'm not sure that's an appropriate way of saying it, but you know what I'm saying. When we're inflamed, right? We can't feel things. We don't feel grounded. We don't feel safe. We don't feel secure. So that's when these things sort of happen. Okay, number two, easy bruising. Okay, so unexplained random bruising crosses several of these issues because it's fragile capillaries and fragile connective tissue and inflamed situations. You couple that with the lack of proprioception if you have hypermobility, which is more than 50% of people with lipedema. Let's see if I remember my stats correctly. Correct me if I'm wrong. I don't ever propose to be right every time, and that's okay. I'm good with that. So easy bruising is another big picture thing. Okay, so if you bruise really easily, it's, potentially inflammation. It is, your weakened blood vessels and capillaries, and it's that proprioception. So I'm going to say, from what I'm learning, that if you are not as inflamed, then you don't bump into things as much. So therefore you don't get as much bruising. That's just my theory. Don't come at me. Okay, digestive chaos, IBS symptoms, bloating, food reactions. However, they're triggered by different things on different days. This is the difference. So if one day you can eat gluten and you're absolutely fine, and the next day you can't, and then, it's just all over the place, or even just a random like meat or, I don't know, eggs or something like that. How you know it's to do with inflammation is it's different on different days, and the load that you can have, meaning you might be able to have a full day of processed garbage. You've gone to Macca's. That's McDonald's for everybody else in Australia. It literally has changed its name to Macca's because Aussies shorten everything, right? So you might have gone to Macca's for breakfast, and then you had KFC for lunch, and then you've sat down with tons of biscuits, ice cream, all the things, right, in the afternoon, because you've had a sad day, bad day, celebratory day. We use food for everything, whatever it was, and you just got to that point where the load just got too much. And then that final thing that you had at the end of the day might have been the ice cream, and you have a trigger and you run into the bathroom and you think, oh, it's just ice cream, when in actual reality, it was the load. You got to a tipping point of having all those things throughout the day, and the ice cream tipped it over the edge. So that's how you know it's to do with the inflammation as opposed to a true IBS situation. And a lot of people are misdiagnosed here as IBS. So the only way you can figure out if it's just generalized inflammation is to track it, diarize it, have days where you are being really clean and really good about your diet, and then have days where eat all the things. Track the difference. The days that you've been really good, you might go 2 days really clean with your diet, anti-inflammatory, have some ice cream, and you might be fine. You can tolerate it because your body hasn't had to deal with all the other stuff, right? But generally this comes from things like mast cell activation syndrome and, downstream, upstream issues with inflammation. But again, inflammation. All right. Histamine reaction. So same thing. So not same thing. The other one was very food and stomach related, whereas histamine reactions can be flushing, hives, eczema, rosacea, and particularly if the redness comes up and then goes away within minutes, right? So like when you blush because you're nervous or that sort of thing, that is a histamine reaction more than it is like a food allergy or an allergy to something in your environment. Okay, often you'll get flares after heat, after exercise, like so, because people with MCAS generally, so mast cell activation syndrome, that's where you have issues with the release of histamines, like it's been triggered over and over. This is where this sort of thing can come into play. And again, mast cell activation syndrome is a downstream issue from an upstream cause of inflammation called CIRS, chronic inflammatory response syndrome. So it just all comes back to this top thing, inflammation. How do we lower our inflammation? Oops, sorry. Okay, fatigue. This is when you're bone tired and you're fully rested. You've had 10 hours sleep, 8 hours sleep, but it comes into play with everything else, right? So this is inflammation. Okay, so it could be under the banner of thyroid disease in your world. It could be under the banner of it's just so hard to move with lipedema. There's so many different categories it could fall under. Anyway, it's still one of the signs of the big picture when it comes to inflammation. Anxiety. So, and this includes sensory anxiety, sensory sensitivity. So having things like this is a woolly kind of top because they're very popular here in Bangkok. It's very Asian, isn't it? It's very Japanesey. I like it. But a lot of people can't cope with this sort of this woolly feel on their skin, right? It's a sensory thing. But the anxiety can be also an overstimulation by noise, light, textures, crowds, and the nervous system is just always on the go. So this is big picture. This is inflammation in the brain. Okay, so it's inflammation everywhere. Okay. Which leads on to ADHD or neurodivergency or divergent. I'm not sure what the full technical words are for this, but I've dropped a video on this already, just a small one of where I'm at with understanding this and thinking, yep, I am likely ADHD. Never thought about it before because I've had a life where, I did 4 years of college. I graduated. I did all these things, but there is a high functioning versions of ADHD and neurodivergent situations. But so there's all different kinds. And it's like, but again, it's inflammation in the brain. So, so there's a lot to unpack with ADHD, but it's part of this big picture. It's part of this group of symptoms that are being put together by a lot of people online, doctors, lipedema researchers, that sort of thing, where they're combining lipedema, MCAS, POTS, hypermobility, Ehlers-Danlos syndrome, ADHD, like all of this. And the more I dig into all of it, I'm starting to tick my little boxes because I love my little boxes, but being quite surprised about what I'm ticking because, I've published 7 books. How can that be an ADHD thing? So it's trying to come to terms in my brain as to, but it's also genetic and our child has it. So it's like, it had to come from somewhere. Pick me. So yeah, because I know it didn't come from his dad. So yeah. Okay, so moving on. Thyroid irregularities. Okay, so even though I'm not going live, I'm still having tech issues. Is this Mercury retrograde or what? I don't know. All right, so thyroid irregularities tend to come into this, and I know a lot of the time, many of you that have watched me for a while know that I have Hashimoto's or had Hashimoto's. I reversed the antibodies many years ago. Because I lowered the inflammation, right? You only have antibodies to the autoimmune situation when your body's inflamed. And I knew how to reverse all of that. That was the one thing I did learn through the 4 years of college is understanding how to reverse the antibodies. It took till I learned I had lipedema to be able to do something about the weight. But yeah, thyroid is very common. And many of you have said to me, oh yeah, I've got a thyroid issue. So this is a common thing under this same umbrella. And it's an inflammatory disease, right? Family patterns. So this is genetic. All of these things tend to be genetic, from what I understand. Again, I haven't done a massive amount yet of going really deep into it. But from my understanding so far is similar body shapes, similar kinds of pain, similar legs, similar symptoms, similar ADHD tendencies, varicose veins, spider veins, and, this thing of, oh, like that's just how our family's built, right? They all have the same sort of, and when I went to college, we learned that this was sort of fell in the familial. It's a familial issue, meaning it's passed down in families because of the diet that is always, so you have a family that eats a lot of pasta, and that comes, like an Italian family. It's a familial disease potentially because it's not that it's genes, but it's that every generation's eaten pasta. So that's what familial means as opposed to genetic. But more and more, I think it's starting to point to a lot of these issues are genetic. And it's not so much the individual things that are genetic, it is the issue with the inflammation being out of control that is genetic. But then that also makes me think, and I'm riffing here, right? Is it just because the whole world has become inflammatory that just so many people deal with all of this now? So yeah, I don't know. It's one of those things, right? Because you just have to go outside and breathe, and you're breathing in heavy metals and pollution and chemicals and all this sort of thing that our body doesn't know what to do with. So it's a tricky thing, right? All right, so family patterns of these issues is another thing you're looking for. Come on. Come on, Tim. I need a new mouse. It's doing weird things for me. Okay, pain that moves. All right, so this is another sign, not so much of, oh, I've got lipedema or I've got fibromyalgia, which is another thing that seems to be, oh, is it lipedema or is it MCAS or lipedema? Is it fibromyalgia or is it lipedema and MCAS together? That's another like area that people are digging into, but either way, it's inflammation. And how you know it's inflammation is because that pain moves around. So it's not structural, it's inflammatory pain that's coming up. So it migrates. One day you might have sore knees. The next day it's like, oh God, my back's sore. Oh, the next day it's like, oh, got a clicking thing going on in my hips, There's no clear trigger. It comes and goes. There's no warning signs. This pain moves around and you just think you're getting older and you just go, oh, it's just menopause and all the things, when in actual fact, it's inflammation and it's just moving around the body, depending on what you've been doing, how you've been sitting, what you've been eating, what you've exposed your body to and your skin to in the way of chemicals. And it's such a big thing to deal with, right? Which is why many people don't look at the big picture because it's too much. The common thread, which I've already said, because I just always like to skip to the good part straight away, is inflammation, connective tissue and the nervous system on high alert because of the inflammation in the connective tissue. So they're not separate problems. All of these things, lipedema, MCAS, POTS, ADHD, hormone irregularities, anxiety, anything else I've mentioned here, it's all driven by inflammation. And my understanding is specifically interleukin-6. Still have to do research into that one. But all that aside, you can see by this before and after. I put this before and after. Somebody, Donna, thank you for always watching, Donna, said last week, I love seeing your before and afters. And so do I, because it reminds me how far I've come and it keeps me on the straight and narrow. And this after is, I haven't even had my boobs done there, which I had done 4 weeks ago. So like they're nice and high now. Whereas they're quite low in that picture. But I like seeing it because it is a reminder. And even though the ones where you can see my legs are still very clearly lipedema legs, because that's kind of the last journey or the last hurdle, it reminds me, look, I've come this far. Yes, I'm still prone to inflammation. Yes, I've still got a long way to go. Yes, I have to work hard to make sure I don't go back to that before picture, but it's kind of worth it. And that's why I put the before and afters up. It's for me. I love that you love them, but it's to remind me. And that's what we've got to do. We've got to consistently remind us of no matter how little steps we take, we've got to remind ourselves like, wow, we've made that step. Phew. My husband took photos of me every 2 weeks during my weight loss journey after my weight loss surgery. That's why I've got so many photos all the way through for a year. It was quite the exercise, right? Because it would be all afternoon on a Sunday, changing every outfit, right? Having photos in the same outfit because I needed to be able to track so I could see how far I'd come. So again, I did that for me. And great now, I can share it. I can look back on it all. But yeah, any way that you can remind yourself how far you've come so far, do it. Put it around the house. Wow, I can walk for, a kilometre now, whereas I couldn't even get to the post, the post box 3 months ago. However, you need to remind yourself of the steps you've made because we don't, as humans, we sort of go, oh, yeah, moving on, right? We never celebrate ourselves, okay? And we've got to celebrate ourselves and that's what these before and after photos do for me. As I'm talking to you and I'm looking at them, I'm like, it's like that reminder, that physical grounding in my body that, wow, look how far you've come. Don't give up now. Keep unraveling all these common threads. Keep diving into the inflammation. Keep figuring out my next step forward, right? After this one. And as always, try everything because you never know what's going to work. All right, I'll stop the share. All right, we're back. So yeah, that's the overall big picture. It all comes down to inflammation, which is why we're going to talk a lot more about inflammation on this channel. Any way that I can think of, anyway, because sometimes it's just reminding ourselves every week, right? Oh, that's right, inflammation. Oh, that's right. I got a bit off track the last couple of days. Inflammation, back to it, right? And sometimes that's what we need. So I'm going to be droning on about it incessantly, and I will continue to deep dive into, wow, I've got ADHD. I'm pretty sure of it. And I'm going to deep dive into all the other things that are associated with lipedema. And so that I can understand better. And plus, it's like the more you look into these sorts of things, your algorithm shows you pretty quickly when the latest research pops up or when they've figured something else out that's worth trying for ourselves, right? So, and just a reminder, as always, we're all different. So what helps me for my inflammation may not do anything for you, but it's worth trying, right? You got to try it. If it does nothing for you after 3 months or something like that, give it a good go. Don't give it 2 weeks because that's just detox symptoms and your body readjusting, right? You've got to actually see it through past that yucky stage. Then, yeah, try it. If it doesn't work after 3 months, go, no, that didn't work. Log it, diarize it, because you never know when you're going to be in front of a doctor or a specialist or somebody who knows more than we do about lipedema. And you can pull out your trusty diary and go, well, you know what? When I trialed keto or when I trialed carnivore or when I trialed the pneumatic pumps or whatever it was, then this happened or that happened. I continuously keep track of things. And, I had my blood tests this morning to keep a track of things, and I keep it all on a spreadsheet. I keep track of what my medications are at the time, how much thyroid medication I'm taking, where I'm at stress-wise. Is there anything big going on in my life? All of that sort of stuff, because it all plays a part. And instead of like putting things into compartments going, no, nothing changed with my thyroid. Well, how do you know? Like, it's like just saying nothing's changed, right? You've got to look at it as a picture, and we've got to start looking at this as, how do we fix our inflammation? How do we downregulate our inflammation? How do we calm our inflammation? This is what we're going to be talking about, and that's what we're going to continue to talk about. So that is it for me this week, and I hope you have an amazing week, and I will see you next Sunday. Bye.